Okay, welcome to part 2. For this to work, you need the image that I've sent you, which is a JPEG showing the skyline of Norwich. Please do look at that, because the intention now is for me to draw that using my 5B pencil, just as I did with the previous drawing. To draw that, section it up just as I did with the previous drawing, and then to paint it using watercolours. So that's what I'll do for the next 10 minutes or so. You may want to do this with me, or you may just decide to use a different photograph or different reference to apply the same Paul Klee type principles of dividing up your picture into a patchwork. So please just look at the picture that I sent you, and you will see there is the skyline of Norwich, and this is seen from a high vantage point looking down on the city. And it's I took this picture last autumn on a place called Britannia Hill, which is a very tall hill above Norwich. And you'll see there on the left, the big rectangular structure is a castle. That's a Norman castle. Then moving along to the right, you'll see a very prominent tower. That is St. Peter Mancroft, with 3 spikes on it, if you like. Then in the middle, more or less, you have the Norwich Cathedral with its 300-foot spire. Then to the immediate right of that, you have a 1960s tower block called Winchester Tower. And then moving along, you have well, the next church you see on the skyline is St. Giles. Then very close to that, to the right of St. Giles, you'll see a very big church, and that big church is St. John's Church Cathedral, actually. It's the Roman Catholic cathedral. And even though it looks very, very old indeed, it was only built in 1910 or thereabouts, but in a kind of a Norman type style. They're the main dominant buildings on the skyline, and they're the things we're going to concentrate on. Now, if you look downwards, you'll see there's lots and lots of detail. There's lots and lots of houses, there's lots of shops, there's lots of windows, there's lots of gables and roofs, and really lots of architectural structures, which we are going to greatly simplify, just as Klee did in the original. So, please have a look at that. And the first thing to do is to draw it. The intention in the end is to paint it, and to use this idea of using sections. So, looking at the picture, the first thing I'm going to draw is the horizon. That is in effect our skyline. And then I think it makes sense really to draw Norwich Cathedral, as it's the most dominant building there. That will do. It's not quite accurate, it's not quite the same as the photograph, but that's fine for now. And we're also going to draw in the castle, and then the church with the 3 spikes, which is St. Peter Mancroft. Next to the cathedral is a 1970s tower block, and then more to the right there's a church tower. Then next to that is St. John's Cathedral, like that. Okay, now that's the first thing. So we've drawn the dominant structures on the horizon, just as Paul Klee had done in that previous painting that we were looking at. And then, just as Paul Klee has done, I'm going to take a line from these buildings and just draw them downwards, really. In some cases, draw them upwards as well. So I'm taking the cathedral there, taking this tower here, drawing a line upwards into the sky, because the idea is to section up the sky as well. And I'm taking a line from that structure and there too. Okay, so that's beginning to give us some panels. I've got 4 panels for the sky. I've got a number of panels for the city. Let me just have a quick look to see how it's. I hope you can see that reasonably clearly. Right, now the next thing to do is to start thinking about some of the structures within these areas, in these bottom areas. You can see here that there's quite a lot going on. Now I'm going to start off by doing a zigzag here. This just represents the roofs that you can see. You'll also see in the foreground, because this picture was taken from a hill in a woods, so we're looking down on lots of trees. So I'm going to greatly simplify those trees, just like that. I'm going to add just a bit more detail to the cathedral there in the middle. I just think it just needs a bit more detail than it's presently got, just to exaggerate that a bit more. Good. It's looking a bit childlike, and that's fine. Might put in the odd building as well, just here and there. I also might do, just for the hell of it, just as Klee did, create some kind of triangle there, just to enclose some of these buildings within this area. And they don't need to be too detailed. It doesn't really matter. Just keep it all very simple indeed, as though maybe a child had drawn those things. There's a hell of a lot more going on than this, I realise that, but with these patches of colour we should be able to divide it up really quite nicely, just as Paul Klee did. Maybe a few taller trees as well, like that. Maybe some down there too. Okay, maybe I'll put in some chimney pots, just as a child would do. And maybe just a bit more detail on the central structure and also on the buildings at the back, just, but not much, not really, not a great deal, just a little bit. Now the castle does have crenulations on the top, so I'm just adding those. Okay, so I hope you can see that, and I think really at this point it's time to start painting. You'll see that some of these structural lines do pass through other objects, and the idea is that whenever there's a border or a boundary, is to paint, say, on one side of it, paint it one colour, and then on the other side paint it a different colour. So you're kind of sectioning up your picture into different colours to give us that patchwork quilt feeling. That might be enough. Okay? Right, the next thing to do is to take some paints, and in my case I'm using my old set of Daler Rowney paints there. You can see that this box of paints needs to be replaced. You've probably got a clean set, and you can see I'm seriously running out of blue, but I'm going to start with blue. Let me just put that to one side. Need a jar of water, it's about 3/4 full or halfway full, and I have a medium round brush which is slightly pointed. It's one of my favourite brushes. So I'm going to start by painting in the sky, and I just might as well start, and there we are, that's blue straight from the watercolour set. Now the idea using watercolours is to let the let the white of the paper show through. Now the next panel I'm going to make a bit grey. Now it makes sense to get a second sheet of paper to try out your colours on first before applying them. It's quite risky or reckless to start just painting, but that's entirely up to you. But sometimes it's useful to paint on a separate piece of paper first. You can see there that I've chosen brown and blue mixed together, and brown and blue gives us, as you all know, gives us grey. I'm going to extend that line up so that we get a smaller section in the middle there. And I'm going to put more of a blue colour behind the cathedral, but maybe just a weak dilution of it. Like so. So you can see there the sky is quite blue and grey. I think it might be nice just to use maybe another colour maybe a yellow.